Hello, I'm Jeff Paur, senior writer with RealTime Fantasy Sports. Welcome to the RealTime Fantasy Sports Show. I'm excited to be joined again by Mike Barner, who's a contributing writer right here, RealTime Fantasy Sports. Mike, thanks again for joining me. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Jeff. We're a week away from the season. This is going to be
We
fun.
are. It's crunch time. It's time to go. A lot of people are drafting this weekend. A lot of people are getting ready to start their leagues, so people are fired up. It's draft season, especially here at Real Time Fantasy Sports. And if you want to get in the league, we have all sorts of leagues going off right now. RTSports.com. Click on that money league link. You can see everything we have to offer. We have our Real Time Fantasy Sports Championship, Best Ball Championship. We have our standard leagues as well, All American leagues, different price points, best ball leagues, you name it. We're offering it here at Real Time Fantasy Sports. And once again, Mike, we're doing a big giveaway today. It is an entry into the Real Time Fantasy Sports Championship. That's pretty exciting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's the big one. $500,000 grand prize. Leagues are drafting live until the contest sells out. And there's also league prizes, $1,600 in league prizes. This prize is valued at $300. You must be a legal U.S. resident, at least 18 years of age to enter. And don't forget to get our exclusive offer right now where we have with Fantasy Alarm. It's a 100% deposit match up to $200. If you are new to RT Sports, go to rtsports.com/alarm. Use the promo code alarm23. Again, it's a 100% deposit match up to $200. So it's a great deal. And if you have any issues at all, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. Please play responsibly. And again, you are not eligible to win if you have won in the last 60 days. So we're going to get to that trivia question here shortly, Mike. Also, we have Glenn Colton on today. Really excited about that. He's from Colton and the Wolfman on SiriusXM Fantasy Radio. He's on Tuesday nights from 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern Time. He's a member of the FSGA Hall of Fame. He's a big-time player, a great analyst, and a great guy. So I'm really excited to have Glenn on today. Before we get to him, Mike, I wanted to do one thing. With drafts coming up here quickly, I wanted to talk about some guys we are moving up and down our rankings. With drafts coming up, are you buying the hype on certain guys? Other guys you're moving down? Give me a guy you're moving up and a guy you're moving down.
Yeah, so for my guy I'm moving up, I'm going to do Jahan Dotson of the Commanders. He looked great in the preseason. He had that one game against the Ravens where he had 7 catches for 76 yards. But the main reason why I moved him up is because of the Terry McLaurin turf toe injury. Even if he is able to play in week 1, he's probably going to be limited at the beginning of the season. I never like skill players who have to make a lot of cuts having turf toe injuries. So I wouldn't be surprised if Dotson gets off to a hot start and has his first season of at least 1,000 receiving yards. And a guy that's down for me, Marquise Brown of the Cardinals. We know now that Kyler Murray is going to miss at least the first 4 games of the season. He's on the PUP list. They cut Colt McCoy. That leaves Joshua Dobbs and Clayton Tune for at least 4 weeks for Marquise Brown. When Murray does come back, who knows how long it's going to take him to get back to normal. I think this Cardinals offense is going to be a mess. So I'm out on Marquise Brown.
I agree. I don't understand what the Cardinals are doing. They say they're tanking, but are they tanking for Caleb Williams? I mean, Caleb Williams is the guy that everybody wants, but they have Kyler Murray locked up. I'm just confused by it all. I don't get it.
Yeah, I think they're hoping that Kyler Murray probably comes back somewhat healthy, looks somewhat good, and then they can trade him for something just to move on from him and get Caleb Williams. Because they're not looking good right now.
Yeah. Okay, I'll give you 2 guys real quick before we get Glenn on here. One guy moving up, I'm buying the hype on Kenny Pickett. I've been getting a lot of stock on him as my quarterback 2. He looked tremendous in the preseason. I love his weapons: Deontay Johnson, Pat Freiermuth, George Pickens. I think they're going to have a really good offense. The offensive line's much improved, so I am definitely buying the hype on Pickett. I'm all over him. And one guy I'm down on a little bit is Aaron Jones. Not really specific, reasons, anything that made me feel this way recently, but you worry a little bit about the Packers. There was talk that they were trying to trade for Jonathan Taylor. So what does that tell me about Aaron Jones? Are they worried about him? He's 28 years old. He has a lot of wear and tear on him. A.J. Dillon's there to compete with for carries. And he loses out on the goal line work, too, to Dillon. He has just 6 rushing touchdowns his last 2 seasons. I feel like Jones is getting pushed up draft boards because people think he's safe. He's going to be in a run-heavy offense. But I'm really kind of worried about him. Age, Dillon, lack of touchdowns. So I'm out on Aaron Jones. That's one guy I'm down on. So before we bring Glenn on, let's do the question. I love that people are talking in the chat already. If you ever have any questions, even during the interview with Glenn, you can feel free to ask us, and we'll try to get to them as quickly as we can. Here's the trivia question. Again, if you get this, it's a free entry into the Real-Time Fantasy Sports Fantasy Championship. It's another tight end one. I like the tight end ones, Mike. Travis Kelce, he led all tight ends in red zone targets last year with 30. Who was second in red zone targets for all tight ends? So tight ends, second in red zone targets. If you're the first to answer it in the chat, you will win the prize. And we have one question in there. I'm being offered Jonathan Taylor for Alvin Kamara. Should I accept? Mike, go quick.
I wouldn't mind it. Both are plenty risky. We got this Kamara suspension, the Taylor with his health issues. So either or for me. I'm not very pumped about either of them, to be honest.
Yeah, I guess I would accept just because Taylor is better long term, in my opinion. I think Kamara might be on the way out a little bit. He kind of slowed down last year, and now he's suspended early in the season as well. So I'll say I'll take Taylor for Kamara. All right, let's bring on Glenn now. Glenn, really appreciate you joining us. Really fun to have you on as a guest instead of you having me on a guest. We turned the tables a little bit.
Yeah, listen, I'm thrilled to be here with you guys, Jeff and Mike, and thrilled to watch you do the work, Jeff.
Yeah, exactly. Tables are turned. So, Glenn, you did a draft live on the air, a TFC Fantasy Championship draft. We call it the TFC, live on Colton and the Wolfman on Tuesday night. It was a lot of fun. We got to hear you and Rick talk about your picks during the draft, but it's a big time contest. A lot of people are drafting right now, and I think it's great to get insight on that. I wanted to dive into that draft and ask you about it a little bit,
Sure.
if that's good with you. So, first of all, you had the 11th pick in the draft. You ended up getting Nick Chubb. What were you thinking when you found out you had the 11th pick? Did you think Chubb was maybe a target at that point? Anybody else you were looking at?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of thought one of the 3 or 4 running backs who went there, Chubb, Pollard, maybe Josh Jacobs, somebody like that would fall, a guy who is the number 1 back, who they're just going to give the ball to over and over again. And that's how we wanted to start from the back end. And we thought, all right, at that point, we kind of thought, because I'm a Cowboy fan, as you can see by what I'm wearing, that we might actually even be able to go Pollard Lamb, which would have really stuck in the Wolfman's craw, which would have been fun.
Yeah. So, Glenn, thanks for joining us. I just had a question with Jonathan Taylor here, since we just talked about him for that viewer that had a question. He fell all the way to the 6th round. Looks like you took Rachaad White ahead of him in the 5th. Is Taylor someone who's a do not draft at all for you this season?
So there's no such thing as a do not draft. It's a do not draft too high. But candidly, one of the things about like you, probably Mike, and I'm sure I know Jeff, I have too many shares of Jonathan Taylor already because I thought here's a top 6, top 7 talent that I'm getting in the 3rd, 4th round routinely. So I have, let's say, 4, 5 shares of Jonathan Taylor. So he'd have to go 7th, 8th round for me to add any more shares. But that's just sort of my portfolio. I think in a contest like this one, like the championship with an overall prize, if you can survive and get into the big dance, and then you have a fresher Jonathan Taylor playing somewhere, I don't know where, it could be a huge boon to your attempt to try to get to the top of this mountain.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Glenn. I was going to ask you overall, just your general approach to these championships like this. Do you do anything different compared to your other leagues? I mean, you hear people talk about trying to stack, QB, receiver, tight end combo, or there's all different approaches you can try to do in these TFCs. What do you like to do?
So 2 things. I do like the stacking. The one year we made a run, into the for timing the top 10. We had the dreaded Jameis Winston, Rashad Perryman stack, but that was very good back then. No, but seriously, I think the stack is important if you're going to get to the big dance. And you have a huge game from a wide receiver and quarterback combo, you're going to really maximize those points. So I do agree with that. But also I try to get players who are, big upside players late in the draft, as opposed to, in a 12 team, just combine, cabin league where you're just playing for that one championship, you're probably looking for some solid floor guys. In a championship like this, forget the floor guys. Let's get the guys who can blow up.
Yeah, so it looks like here 4 of your first 5 picks were running backs. Your one non-running back was CeeDee Lamb. Was that by design? How do you like how your wide receivers came out after going running back heavy early?
I actually think it worked out better than we could have been, expecting. I think you've got Evans. Lamb obviously is a star. Evans is still a big play guy who has a lot of big games. I like Juju in the slot in that, Bill O'Brien offense to get a lot of target share. And this is a PPM. And you've got the upside of Odell Beckham. And I really like Michael Gallup, as well as, Chris Godwin, 2 guys who are year 2 off of the ACL and are really probably going to be back to what they are. So we didn't get Godwin here, but I like Gallup. And I even like, the Josh Downs pick toward the end of the draft. This is a guy I think who could easily get a lot of that underneath work. And by the time the game's over, he's, 8 for 60. And if he gets in the end zone, it's a huge day.
So you took Justin Fields in the 6th round. You had a choice between him and Trevor Lawrence. Was that a tough decision?
It was. We have a lot of shares of both Lawrence and Justin Herbert, which are my favorite part of if you're going to jump up at all for quarterback. But in the overall championship, I could easily see Justin Fields having a day in the last 3 weeks where, throws for 2 touchdowns, runs for 2, and has 150 yards rushing or something like that. His upside is just enormous. And I think it's probably higher than, even Trevor Lawrence or maybe even Justin Herbert, because the rushing touchdowns and the rushing yards are much more valuable than the passing touchdowns and the passing yards.
Yeah, I really liked your pick of Kareem Hunt in the 12th round. Obviously, he still hasn't signed with the team yet, but there was that report yesterday that he's gotten offers from at least 4 teams. Now we've seen how the Jonathan Taylor situation is playing out. Maybe he signs with the Colts. Is that where you're hoping he lands? What are you thinking there?
So, because I have 4 other running backs, the Wolfman and I on this team, and Chubb, Pierce, Etienne, and White, I'm hoping that I don't never hope for anybody to get hurt, but somebody's going to get hurt on a good team. It's just the nature of the game. So I'm hoping you see Kareem Hunt land on a very good team because they lost a running back. And then I don't care if he's good for this particular team in the first 2, 3, 4 weeks he's there, because I've got a deep running back room. I'm looking for him to land in a good spot and have a very good second half of the year. And I think that could easily happen. If he lands in Indy, he's valuable, but he's more valuable if he lands, I'm making this up completely. Reunion in Kansas City, goes to Buffalo because James Cook is not what they expected him to be, or something they realize Tony Pollard can't handle the load. And Rico Dowdell is really not Zeke, and he ends up in Dallas. I mean, there's all kinds of possibilities that could be very valuable.
Glenn, I want to know, I've never asked you this, and it just kind of hit me now, but you've drafted a lot with the Wolfman as a duo together, and you guys have had a lot of success. I mean, you've won numerous industry leagues together. You've also drafted with Stacey Stern as well. Why do you think it works?
Wow. So here's really the answer. Number one is, and I know I goofily say this, no I in team, and I use this, as a even team name on RTSports sometimes, but we can debate. And Jeff, you've been in the room when we've fiercely debated players back and forth, but the moment we click start that player or draft that player or, obtain that player in an auction, it's our player. And we've been doing this together, football and baseball, for, oh boy, I mean, many, many years. I think it's, well over 20. And never has one of us said to the other, if you just didn't convince me to draft that guy, And so I think a big part of it is there's a lot of collaboration. I think we put the work in. I mean, the behind the scenes emails, chats, texts, sort of debating players. And last but not least, we have our strategy. I think there are 3 or 4 people who could go into a high-level fantasy football draft like the, TFC, or a high-level fantasy baseball draft, and have no plan and let the draft come to them and really win. I don't believe in that. We have our smart system. We've developed it and we follow it. And we don't win every year, of course, but we're committed to the plan, and the plan has proven successful, so we stick with it.
So going back to this draft that we've been talking about here that you just did, is there anyone that you got sniped on, just missed, that you were like, oh man,
Goodness,
I wish I had him, and your team might have looked a little bit different?
So we got sniped on both Tony Pollard and Derrick Henry on the turn in the first round. We took, Chubb at 11, and we would have taken either Pollard or Henry, coming back right there, as much as we love CeeDee Lamb, but we would have done that. So that was a definite snipe. In round 4, Amari Cooper was picked right before us. We would have taken him as a wide receiver 2 behind Lamb, but he got sniped. Just taking a look at some of the other picks here. We got sniped on, we were going to take Russell Wilson. In fact, there was a whole thing, Jeff will recall, on the air where we said, okay, we're picking 11. Team 12 already has 2 quarterbacks. There's no way he's taking a third quarterback. And he went and took a third quarterback in Russell Wilson, who we were going to draft. And I think what happened to us again, much later, is I think we got sniped on the defenses. In fact, we did. We were going to take a defense in round 15. The Niners and the Cowboys went the pick before us. So that was yet another snipe. So I would say it happened a lot.
So we're talking with Glenn Colton of Colton and the Wolfman on SiriusXM Fantasy Radio. He's on Tuesday nights from 10 to midnight, member of the FSGA Hall of Fame, just a great, great fantasy player. We're talking to him about the recent TFC draft he did. Again, we are doing a giveaway. So we do not have a correct answer yet, so I'm going to throw it out there again. If you get this right, you get an entry into the fantasy championship. The question is, Travis Kelce led all fantasy tight ends in red zone targets last year with 30. Who was second in red zone targets for tight ends? First person to put that correctly in the chat wins an entry into the TFC. So, Glenn, you're doing another TFC tonight, and I had to look.
I am.
I had to look. You have the first pick.
Yes, sir.
What are you thinking? I don't know if you want to give it away, but I'd like to know your thoughts. It's a tough decision.
Yeah, it's really a choice between Tony Pollard and CeeDee Lamb there. I'm just kidding. As much as I love those guys, it's not going to be that. Brandon Aubrey was on my mind as a possibility. Yeah, I mean, I did have the first pick in the Rick and I in the SiriusXM host draft, and we took Christian McCaffrey, but that was a cabined, 12-team league. This being, an overall prize. I mean, I know you want suspense and whatnot, but I'd say the odds of taking Justin Jefferson are about, as good as you can get.
Do you have, not to give away too many secrets because you got this draft tonight, but do you have like a favorite last round dart throw player that you've been getting more often than not this season? One for me is like Richie James, like on the Chiefs. He's usually available last round most teams, kind of thing.
So I like Richie James there, but I think there's so many guys in Kansas City. It's sort of hard to know who it would be. For me, it's guys who have been disappointing so far, but have the ability. A Josh Palmer, for example, maybe a Darius Slayton. Guys who could really step up in that receiver round. And also, if they're still sitting there, the Kareem Hunt, Leonard Fournette combo, I mean, the upside is very big. So that's the type of guys who sort of look at the last round. Or if I only have one tight end, guys like, Jake Ferguson, Jawan Johnson, guys who could really take a big step up if you need a second tight end.
Yeah, that's where I was going to kind of ask you a similar question. Just players you like and don't like at their current values. You've done a lot of drafts. I know I've been in them with you, and you've done some industry ones. But any players you specifically like at their value and don't like?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, Rachaad White continues to fall. I mean, this draft in the TFC we're looking at. He goes to the 5th round. He's one of the few bell cow backs. There's no real competition. I don't see Baker Mayfield turning into Tom Brady with the number of times they could throw the ball. So, for me, I like that a lot. I'm amazed at how far Michael Gallup falls. I mean, this is a guy who's been very good, and I think he's just being judged for, his not being fully healthy last year. So I like him a lot, and I really like Dalvin Cook because the Jets didn't give him that money and didn't bring in Aaron Rodgers. to sit him on the bench while Breece Hall gets better and play Michael Carter. I don't see it.
So you were talking about a lot of players with shares and why you may have avoided Jonathan Taylor in that one league. Is there a tight end that you have more shares of than others this season that you're really high on? I'm pretty big on Darren Waller. Not a homer pick because I'm a Giants fan. But is there one tight end that you've been actively pursuing more often than not?
We have a lot of Ingram and Njoku because it sort of falls in that after Waller and Pitts and obviously Hawkinson, Kittle, Kelsey for sure go. So those are the two guys we think have a lot of upside. And I'm a big believer in Jake Ferguson. I'm going to say it out loud. That's another guy we got sniped on the other night. Watch the Dallas offense from Jason Witten to Dalton Schultz. They dump that ball off in that 5-minute, 5-yard curl all the time. So look for Jake Ferguson to get a lot of those targets.
My last question for you, Glenn, before I let you go, just in general, we've done a lot of drafts like I talked about. There's definitely some trends, some stuff that's happening. What have you seen and has it impacted you at all with how you're drafting this year?
Well, I mean, I've seen two things that I think were different than last year. One is more quarterbacks going earlier. And I've done it. I'm in an RTFFC and took Mahomes in the second round to pair him with Travis Kelce. So I've tried it out. I don't really like it, to tell you the truth. I mean, I love the player, Mahomes, Allen. I love these guys. But I don't think the difference between them and a Herbert Lawrence or even a Fields or even Dak, is so great that you give up a top flight wide receiver or running back. So that's one thing that I've seen. And the other one is, just the receiver runs. I've seen drafts like this one we did the other night where, you have 4 or 5 receivers before you even have a running back or 2 running backs. You have 5 receivers. You can't even start them. You have them on your team before you have 2 running backs. So I'm surprised by that. Does that change my strategy? Not really, because by the time 7 rounds are done, I really want to have my full starting complement of wide receivers and running backs. So either way, I'm going to do that.
All right, Glenn, I really appreciate you coming on, taking some time out of your day to join me and Mike on the show. It's great talking with you. Great to get your insight. And again, Glenn is on every Tuesday night from 10 p.m. to midnight. I'm on during that 11 o'clock slot there with them. And I always enjoy talking to Rick and Glenn. Glenn, thanks again for joining me. Really appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure, Jeff and Mike, and everyone who wants to see how this draft works out tonight, 7 p.m. You can check it out, and we'll hopefully do you proud, Jeff.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Glenn. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Glenn.
All right, so we have a winner, Mike. Someone got the correct answer. It was David Njoku. So Donovan wins the prize. David Njoku had 20 red zone targets last year. So Donovan, you win the prize, and you can email contests@bettersportsnetwork.com to claim your prize. Again, contests@bettersportsnetwork.com. Donovan, you win the prize. So Njoku, he had 20 targets in the red zone, Mike, 4 touchdowns.
It's not and that's with not the best quarterback play either. So I mean, if Deshaun Watson is anything decent, it's crazy to think, but that he could probably replicate that number, if not surpass it this season, if he can stay healthy.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking with the question when I was trying to find something that it kind of intrigued me. I have a lot of, you asked Glenn about stock and tight ends. I have a lot of David Njoku stock. I actually think that for the price, I like it. And this kind of intrigues me as well, because if he just converts, 60 or 50% of those, that's 10 touchdowns. So that's
and you don't have to pay one of those premium round selections like you're doing. Obviously Kelsey's first, Mark Andrews is 3rd round most leagues. Darren Waller's now mostly up into the 5th round, sometimes going in the 4th. So, Hawkinson, same kind of thing. Kittle, I mean, he's already having injury problems. That's no stranger for him in his career. It looks like, I was reading a report this morning that he's still not practicing. We'll see if he plays week 1, but he has not been a picture of health. So if you want to wait, then you can grab someone like Njoku there and get those TD upsides. Is great. That's
one guy I've recently seen falling a lot in drafts is Kittle. Like he's really moving down draft boards. So are you totally out on him because of the injury stuff?
I've been out on him. If I had an opportunity in my leagues, I was taking Waller over Kittle every time. I think A, his injury history, B, the quarterback problems that always seem to plague the 49ers, and C, there's too much talent around him. And he's such a good blocker that they don't necessarily need him to catch a lot of passes. So there could be weeks where he provides nothing. And I'm not willing to spend a 5th-round pick or a 4th-round pick on something like that.
I think your love of Waller has grown on me because I took him in an auction last night. That's the first share I have with him.
Yes.
And I took
Yes.
him.
Come to the side, Jeff.
Yeah, I overspent, I think, in this auction. I
Oh.
went all in. My starters are phenomenal, but my bench is horrific. So I kind of did a different strategy. And my bench, if people get hurt, I'm going to be in trouble. But if everybody's healthy, I'm looking pretty good. I did it with the Godfather, Charlie Wiegert. I don't know if you know him at all.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So he's in this league. It's a lot of fun. A lot of ex industry guys are in it. But it was an auction, my first and only auction of the year. I love auction drafts. How about you?
Yeah, I have a 14-team Superflex auction draft coming up on Sunday night. So that
How long
should
is
be a
that going
tough
to
one.
take?
A while. It's not an industry league, just with some friends, at least 3 hours. It's a long one for us East Coasters, us guys with 2 kids. We were pretty tired by the next day. So
Oh,
it's
boy.
a fun draft. I always like it, but yeah, it's a tough one.
Yeah, ours was 3 hours last night with 3 keepers, so that's always
Oh yeah.
that's rough. Those auctions, that's the only thing they can take a while. But if anybody else has
Yeah,
any questions in the chat, feel free to put them in there. We're about out of time here, but Mike, as we get into drafts here coming up this weekend, anything else you want to add? Any other players that kind of intriguing you now at this point of the season, right before we get ready to go?
Yeah, there was the news this morning that the Dolphins put Jeff Wilson on the IR, so
Oh,
that's
yeah.
pretty interesting there for Mostert and A-Chain there. They now have a big opening with Wilson expected to miss at least 4 games. We'll see. Do they dip their toes into the Kareem Hunt, Leonard Fournette area? I don't think they will. They didn't work anything out with Dalvin Cook. Obviously, the Jonathan Taylor thing. I saw the report where they wanted Waddle and picks. I mean, that's like one of the worst trades. That's like that guy in your league that tries to get your whole team, and he wants to offer you one garbage player. I mean, it's ridiculous. But yeah, that Dolphins running back situation is going to be something to move the players up your draft board if you're drafting this weekend.
Yeah, especially a chain. He really intrigues me. I know he's smaller back, but he catches the ball well, kind of fits that system well, in my opinion. Mostert's an injury risk a little bit, in my opinion. He's 31 years
Yep.
old, too. So I don't know what's going to happen there. I'm kind of confused by the whole situation. I still think they have to have something in the works because I don't think they can go into the season with a chain who might not be healthy for week 1 and then a 31-year-old Mostert. So maybe Kareem Hunt is in the works. Who knows? It should be.
Yeah,
Leonard
and they got
Fournette's
rid of
out there, too.
Gaskins. They got rid of Gaskins too, which
Yeah.
is weird. They just did that yesterday, and if they had known that they were going to put Wilson on the IR, I would have thought that'd be a guy they hold on to. But I guess they really don't like Gaskins.
Yeah, Gaskins went to Minnesota then, and I
Yeah.
guess he'd be 3rd on their depth chart there. So interesting. A lot of stuff still happening. The kicker stuff's been crazy too. I don't know. I've been keeping up with it with our rankings, but there's been a lot of kicker movement. I can't remember a season with so many kickers traded. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, for those Andy Barons on Yahoo, man, that was his Super Bowl the other day with all those kickers going from one team to the other. He's big on the kicker stuff. So yeah, that was a lot of movement there for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Again, get in some leagues here at RealTime Fantasy Sports, RTSports.com, all sorts of options for you, different price points, championships, you name it. Mike, thanks so much for joining me once again. This is the 3rd straight week, 4th straight week. I can't remember.
I think 4th. Yeah, they're all kind of
Yeah,
blurring
there you
together.
go.
Season's coming fast.
Yeah, it's really been a lot of fun talking with you, though. And after us is Getting Buzz with Howard Bender at 1 o'clock Eastern time. So be sure to tune in to him. Again, thanks, Mike, for joining me. Thanks to you for watching as well. This has been Jeff Paur with Real Time Fantasy Sports. Have a great day, everyone.